Thank you so much. I'd like to bring David from the Australian Rivers Institute into the Yes, I know he's online. I'd like to bring David into the room, please, and let's all enjoy your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and welcome wherever you may be in the world. And it's timely that I should follow on from the previous talk on nature-based solutions to talk about how we develop confidence in green infrastructure investment to facilitate restoration of our catchments for the provision of the services that they provide and to actually build natural capital. Next slide, please. So the tool that we've been working on is a multi-objective investment tool to quantify the costs and the benefits of actions to reduce flood impact, improve water quality, reduce sediment erosion, benefit stream health, and enhance carbon sequestration. And as an example, the catchment that I'm showing, if you can see the small yellow dots, those are the areas where catchment restoration was targeted. The red areas represent the actual areas of major sediment erosion, and you can see the disconnect. And that is partly what our tool is about. Next slide. So this tool involves two main components. One of them is the engine room of the model that looks at the spatial optimization. How can you best target and invest in areas that are critically in need of restoration? The second part is generating scenarios, and these are potentially multiple stakeholder scenarios. Each stakeholder may have different potential options and want to explore different scenarios for them to be able to invest in catchment restoration. And so here we've got to connect between essentially the engine room of the spatial optimization tool and the scenarios that are generated from that tool that enable the engagement with different stakeholders. And the timeline is that the project commenced in around mid-2019. And what we're aiming to do now is have an opportunity to put in different catchments, examine different catchments beyond our prototype catchment in the Laidley in southeast Queensland. Next slide. So the sort of business model that is being considered is one in which there may be a green bond investment, and that provides essentially the monetary input for a catchment restoration fund. That catchment restoration fund involves a group of suppliers or tenderers for on-ground investment in a reverse auction process that is being informed by some of the research to identify the priority locations and the multi-benefit generations that are possible. So the investment plan is that it's a catchment by catchment tool. It involves project management that connects with the on-ground implementation, and for southeast Queensland could be in the order of around 500 or more rural jobs with multiple benefits, and those benefits could extend to sediment, carbon, nitrogen, and flood control. Next slide. So if it's possible to run this, hopefully, and what you should be able to see is our focal catchment, our prototype catchment is the Laidley, and what we're looking at is a series of planning units that subdivide that catchment, and those planning units are being targeted for erosion control and subsequently for nitrogen and for flood control. And so there'll be an investment in each one of those planning units, and that investment is being optimized for the planning unit. And so what you're seeing is the visualization of that. This is the type of tool that will enable the engagement with our stakeholders, with our research partners, and others. I'll go on to the next slide, please. So the research team involves Griffith University, Queensland University of Technology, and also water technology. It's being funded through the Ian Potter Foundation, a philanthropic foundation, and has multiple additional stakeholders and research partners. So some of those are the Queensland Government, the Port of Brisbane, SEQ Water, Urban Utilities, and the Lockyer Regional Council, as well as the research partners, of course, Queensland Government and Water Technologies. So some of the partnerships, obviously what we're developing is the visualization tool is the back end of this model to engage with our research providers, our partners and our stakeholders, enabling multiple scenarios to be examined in detail, helping practitioners to be able to implement green infrastructure in catchments, and also providing virtual reality, being able to, for example, put stakeholders on the ground in a flood and be able to see some of the effect of some of their actions. Next slide. So the needs, it's a multiple market. It has to be done as a multiple market with stackable credits to make it feasible. Sediment, carbon, nitrogen, flooding, and biodiversity. A trading scheme to connect buyers with sellers. An implementation body to ensure the work is done. On-ground validation with a regulator, and a distribution of credits to investors, landowners, and government to be able to sustain the fund and grow that fund, that catchment restoration fund. Next slide. So those are my contact details. It's the Australian Rivers Institute, Griffith University, but it's a multiple research organisation, multiple stakeholder project, and we're looking to extend it into other catchments. Thank you.
Wow, that was fantastic, David. I'm really always interested when people say two-sided marketplaces.